They had it spelled wrong. But you may not 4x100 relay one.
Yeah. That's right.
Nice. Oh, that comes out this my award. Yes.
Maybe
It didn't take 2 minutes. This is great.
I waited to watch Grace and Baxter quite a lot.
It's a good thing you didn't have to start to get
Came
that.
out.
It's taken me.
Is your youngest senior long? Is what? Is your youngest a senior?
Yeah, thanks for that,
Someone said, Eli, he's not, but like,
Merlin.
she's a senior already?
Oh.
She's
Yeah, she is.
I can't echo you because, you know, your husband the other night, I felt so bad. I was like, come on,
I'm not there.
Wait, Rick Party, he said to me, I'm so there were 2 great.
Oh, yeah, oh, the powder puppy or whatever?
He was so serious, I was just.
Oh, yeah, well, and he does
Carla's
get
gonna share it ready for the scene.
That's what Ray said.
But she, I don't know, that's a pretty athletic group of seniors though, I gotta say. I don't know, all I know is it was cold, and I was just like, what do you mean? I'm like, can't we just
A little high now, so it's
One,
Yeah, I didn't know the games. I didn't see.
I never went to
Start the
it.
meeting without a gavel.
I always had something to do, or just so I could go, and so I
Right
went
there.
But you gotta go now, this is the last one, they get the best.
I know.
I was the last one.
Yeah.
My mom's like, I miss it.
Now we can
Alright,
start.
Good evening. This is a study session of the Mahomet Seymour Board of Education. I'd like to call the meeting to order. It is 7:03 p.m. on Monday, October 1st. This time I'd like to remind everyone who has an electronic device in the room to please silence those. I'd like to remind our visitors, in order to facilitate an effective meeting, anyone who wishes to make public comments to the board, I'd ask to please read the visitor guidelines found on the table outside the door and complete the public participation form and get those to Jennifer here in the next couple of minutes. We need roll call, please.
Giles.
Here.
Raver.
Here.
Hendricks.
Here.
Casson.
Here.
Larson. Here. Park.
Yes.
McComb.
Yes, let's stand please for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent, thank you. It's good to see everybody tonight. At this time, you've had a chance to preview the agenda for tonight's meeting, and I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda as it has been presented. If that is someone's desire, thank you. Mr. Ravar, is there a second?
Thanks,
Lori. Okay, thank you.
Who did the second? I'm sorry. Lori. Thank you.
Lori. Is there further discussion on the agenda? All in favor of approving the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Jennifer, do we have anything under public comment?
We do.
So, we've got one topic tonight for our study session and then a little bit to do in closed session. But our topic tonight is school improvement plans. And it's always good to hear from our administrators as far as what's going on in our buildings and where we're headed. And so we thank you all for being here tonight. And do we have an order?
We do, and I
Okay.
want to thank everybody for being here tonight. This is an important night in terms of school improvement plans. These are the plans that our principals have been working on and probably thinking about since the end of last year in terms of where we go from here. So please feel free to ask any questions and we'll get started with Mr. G from the high school. We're working all of this together.
Good.
Not
Yeah.
So appreciate the opportunity tonight to speak to you about the high school. We do have 4 goals that I'd like to talk about. We spent some time in the summer. We always do a division head retreat with the administration and our division heads. And this is a major topic of conversation in that process. So explained today, we actually had a faculty meeting and I presented these goals. And what's nice this year is I think we have a pretty good mix of some academic goals, of course, related to the SAT, standardized tests. But we also have this year a mix of some social emotional goals as well, which is really exciting for me. So I'll just lead off with the first goal, which to me is the most exciting goal. We call it the RTI team, but honestly, it's probably more to do with our intervention team. We're resurrecting that team this year. We've had some changes of staff. We've had some additions, some turnover in staff. So we decided it was time for us to look at that group, bring that group back together. It's a volunteer group, so that's kind of exciting. We have a group of administration, counselors, and some teachers, a social worker that's involved in that group, all volunteer. And really what we try to do is get together every other week and have conversations about kids, which is really, really what we're about. So we're spending some time going over things that have been created in the past, making sure that's still the way we operate. Is that still relevant to where our kids' needs are now? And we've just started that process. So we're this week, Thursday, is our second meeting where we hope to finalize a draft of the interventions we offer, hope to finalize some of the tools that we're going to be providing staff to communicate to this group of what their needs are. And then we're excited again to get rolling and have conversations on a bi-weekly basis about our kids. Some of the things that we've talked about in the past related to that group are, of course, grades. Grades for our kids. Any students that are struggling, both academically, socially. And then this is going to be a great resource, in my opinion, for Mr. Benedict as well, because we'll be addressing some attendance issues as well. And sometimes those can be a challenge, as you may know. So, again, hope this is a good resource for our kids mainly, but also kind of an outlet for our staff to utilize as well. So, pretty excited about that goal.
What does RTI stand for?
Response to intervention. Again, I think this is more of a, we use the term RTI, but it's more just of an intervention group. So.
Is it the same teachers all?
No, go ahead.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Is it the same teachers all the time? Like they'll sit on it, or will
It
they?
is the same teachers that served before, yeah.
Okay.
Does that group tie into the PBIS group? Or is it?
You know what, I think that it does indirectly. I mean, both of those two programs, for lack of a better word, tie into the same goal. So not the same, but definitely fighting for the same things.
So kind of helps support each other.
Absolutely. Other thoughts? No, that's fine. The second goal is, again, pretty excited about this as well. And the second goal deals with our dual credit, advanced placement, and then I put other off-campus opportunities for our kids. It's time for us to review that. It's time for us to have some conversation about what we currently offer. And it's time for us to maybe explore other avenues and expand some of those opportunities that we have out there. We've worked with Parkland traditionally in the dual credit realm and continue to work and explore options with them. But we've also entered some conversations in the last year or so with Eastern as they continue to branch out. So pretty excited about those conversations continuing because I think the more that we can provide our kids outside of the traditional way of doing business, the better off we are for our kids too. So excited to have some conversation with Parkland. With our one-to-one initiative, they actually are offering more and more online dual credit. So I'm excited to talk to Lisa Lyon over there about what that looks like for us potentially. And then the other off-campus opportunities, what I'm speaking of there is we currently partner with Parkland through our CTE, where we have some students that are taking some classes there in the morning, primarily nursing and primarily automotive classes. We have one particular student that I just spoke to last week that is going to be graduating with an associate's degree. She basically is taking classes in the morning at Parkland, obviously showing up 9 o'clock at Mahomet, Seymour High School, and then after school she's going back. I mean, it's amazing what she's going to accomplish.
So just to be clear, when she graduates from Mahomet Seymour High School, she'll also be graduating with an associate's degree
Correct.
from Parkland.
Correct. Yeah, which is amazing. So, the department is trying to explore options as well as dual credit becomes more and more challenging from their perspective in terms of the guidelines and restrictions that are placed on them. This gives us another opportunity as well as them to get our students there and some college credit.
I got another question to go along that. We had something last year where we didn't have the right math to fit a student. So then can we use them if they have a math that's higher than our math, or would that, I'm just curious.
We still continue to explore that, but this program is for probably gen ed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we have, I mean, I can't remember a time when a student graduated with an associate's degree when they graduate from high school, but is this something that she or he did on their own, or is this something that it's through the guidance counselors?
It's through the guidance counselors, yeah. It's through Parkland. It's ETA, and I can't remember. Nathan, you may remember. I don't know if you can help me with that. We have ECCA, but then the ETA is another program that they're utilizing. And it's basically, if you meet the requirements, the prereqs, you can go in the morning, and then you can come back in the afternoon and take classes. So,
Do you think that this will be something more students will try?
yeah, we're having more and more that are definitely showing interest. My daughter's one
It's
of them.
cheaper.
So,
Too, it changes. I mean,
Yeah.
it makes it cheaper
yeah,
for college.
it's very reasonable. So,
I mean, you could probably graduate from high school with, now getting an associate's and things like that, that's probably pushing.
she's put a lot of time in it.
I mean, you could,
She's done summer stuff.
And I've talked with her, and she's stressed pretty hard. I mean, it's doable, but you gotta be pretty motivated. But what's nice is you don't have to leave Mahomet with an associate's, even if you're leaving with a year under your belt. You're talking about a year of gen eds out of the way. That's huge.
that's a huge cost savings for the family.
Huge cost savings, and plus, one of the benefits besides the cost savings that we're getting and having conversation with the student is it puts them on a college campus. It gets them acclimated to that environment. It gives them a little bit of, hey, this is what it's going to be like. So there's a lot of other benefits that come with that too. So yeah, it's really exciting.
So that's all courses taken and not any AP credits?
Correct.
Would that be right? Yeah.
Correct.
Too early for?
Correct.
Okay. Dual credit.
Correct. Similar to dual credit. It's actually just
Going to
those
work.
classes going there and taking.
Right.
Yeah.
And what they've done is they've tailored the program for our high school students in the area. And they're offering it at times where it's more accommodating. Yeah.
You touched on it, in regards to Parkland, the one-to-one is
Mhm.
opening up more opportunities.
Mhm.
I would guess with Eastern, just because of geography, the one-to-one is probably gonna be even more valuable with them, or have you gotten that far with them?
I haven't really gotten that far. But one thing I am experiencing with them is there is a definite desire and eagerness to partner. So that's exciting. And when I'm having those conversations, it's kind of the sky's the limit with them. I think they're really motivated to partner for sure. So, yeah, it's really exciting. And then the last two goals are directly related to SAT. And of course, as you're aware, this is a little bit of a new game for us at the high school. We're well versed in ACT, but what I like about the two goals, we may or may not accomplish them, but I personally think you set the bar pretty high, and I hope that we'll rise up to it, because if you've looked, and I'm sure you have, you've reviewed those goals, they're pretty lofty, but if you look at them, there's a composite goal in there, and then there's a goal directly related to our low SES students. And if you look at both goals, for example, the first goal, number 3, we'll average a score of 1,200 composite. What's exciting to me is we don't have a lot of data to compare that to, but what we try to do is compare to, as we always do, what are others doing in the state? What does that look like for us? So if we score a 1,200, that's going to put us in some pretty elite company. And when I say elite company, only a couple years ago, you had 9 schools in the state that actually achieved that goal. And those 9 schools, mind you, don't look like us. You're looking at an average of 2,500 students.
It rains money in those districts.
I'll just read some of them off. New Trier, Stevenson,
There you go.
Hinsdale Central, Glenbrook North, Neuqua Valley. So you kind of get the idea. We had 1191 last year composites, so we're close. So that'll be some pretty elite company if we do that. So pretty exciting. And then the last goal 4 is again related to SAT, but it's related to our low SES students. We wanted to make sure that we're setting some goals related to that group, and that we were making some efforts to do what we can to assist that group as well. And again, I think this is pretty lofty. If you compare it, the high school is going to have at least 45% of our low SES students that are going to meet standards in both ELA and math. And if you look at the numbers, again, 2 years ago, only 7 schools in Illinois made that list. And what's even more remarkable is when you look at those numbers, again, we don't look anything like those 7 schools, of course. But the state average, not for low SES, but the state average for meeting and exceeding in ELA and math, so total kids, is 40% for ELA and 37%.
What is our SES at the high school? Like I haven't been.
18%.
And we got like 945 as of today.
18% that's
18%.
reported.
Okay. I think recorded, that's a
What
good
we know
thing to
that
say.
happens, those kids get older.
Yes, they don't
then
want it.
Their families are less likely to apply for assistance.
Yeah, so some of the schools on that list, like I said, that don't look like us necessarily, you're looking at a 4% low SES, 5%, 6%. So.
Thank you for naming those.
So those are the 2 academic SAT goals that obviously are important, but we'll see. I'm excited to see where we end up, and you know what? I have a lot of confidence in our staff and teachers. And you set the bar, and they continue to push kids, and kids rise up to it. So pretty excited to see where we end up. So those are my 4 goals.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Questions for me?
What are the standards? It says we'll meet standards. I guess I don't quite understand what those standards are.
I'm sorry, which goal?
The goal number 4.
4.
Yeah.
Okay, so meet or exceed, based off of SAT's standard for meeting the English and language standard.
So there's a minimum score
Yes.
on the
Yes.
SAT. That's what you're going for.
Correct.
And then the SAT is aligned to the Illinois state
Illinois
standards.
State Learning Standards.
Sorry.
I know when we put the conferencing technology in the classroom in the library, we were hopeful we might be able to link live instruction in some areas where we do live instruction and bring in other districts or vice versa. And I know immediately we ran into a timing roadblock because third hour is at the same time everywhere in the state. And if we all decide to offer this class a third hour and do it over video, that's a problem. Are we getting any closer to figuring out how
Well,
to make something work
I
with
mean,
that?
that's part of those other partnerships that we will be exploring. Are we any closer? I wouldn't say, quite honestly, we're any closer than we were. But those possibilities are still out there, and those conversations certainly are taking place.
We've been approached by smaller districts that can't offer everything that we have, and frankly, the teacher shortage is feeding into that, is that there's some areas like foreign language that are extremely hard to fill. And we came pretty close to trying to set something up with a neighboring smaller district that was missing a Spanish teacher, and I think we could have made it work. They did end up finding an instructor, so that's kind of, since I've been here, that's been the experiences. We have a lot to offer, but I think it's something we can definitely get going at some point.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, next up is Mr. Mills. The inaugural school improvement plan.
Thank you, first of all. And we have 3 goals at the junior high. First one is reestablish the PBIS team. So I actually kind of alluded to the RTI, being interconnected with Shannon's goal. PBIS stands for Positive Behavior Supports and Interventions. It's been in place in the past. We're just kind of reestablishing and figuring out where everyone's at, with the hopes of improving all the different areas for students, for staff at the junior high. As you know, there's been many changes at the junior high. PBI's team is going to work to build a positive school climate for staff and students, and hopefully those positive relationships, that positive climate, will reduce behavioral incidents and improve academics. So that's kind of the overarching. We have a team, and again, it's all voluntary. I think we're up to 18 people on that team that meets bi-weekly. Some of this, I think they were at 6 or 7 last year, so we've got a bunch of new staff members that are really excited about being a part of it. We're off to a really good start with surveying staff to find out exactly where everyone's at, to get a baseline, and then formulating a plan and coming up with goals of what we want to achieve throughout the year. So a lot of staff members are completely behind us in what we're doing. So the handbook is also in place, and it's kind of guides where and what we do as a team. The way the team is set up, there's tier 1, so there's 3-tiered system. Tier 1 is all the students get this. So we have a system called, we utilize Bulldog Bucks. Kids are doing positive things. There's a conversation that happens, and they receive a Bulldog Buck, and then they can buy things, they can enter drawings, and do some really fun things with that. But then we also have the tier 2. Everybody gets tier 1. Tier 2 and tier 3 would be a student that a check-in, check-out system. So student A is struggling, and we are going to hook them up with it could be, we've used custodians, we've used secretaries, someone in the building who's a positive role model. They can start their day and have a check-in, ask them some questions, and hopefully guide them down the right path of having a good day. And then they end the day with that same person, and they check out. So check in, check out. So not all students get that, or be a handful. Okay, and then the top one would be hopefully less students, the tier 3, which would be more intense. They need more interventions to help them through the day. So we're, like I said, reestablishing all of those and putting new things in place, and hopefully improving across the board for all of our students and all of our staff. So any questions in regards to goal 1?
And you said a lot of the staff are behind. How close do you think you'll be to getting, everybody on board?
The initial survey, I think we're probably around 80%, so which was much higher than I anticipated, to be honest. I don't know that we'll ever get 100%, but we'll continue to do some good things, and hopefully they see the change and just continue to build off those positive relationships.
80 is a pretty good number.
It is.
Just, I guess, a commercial for the whole PBIS. At the high school, I don't know all the parts and pieces that go into it, but I do see the breakfast twice a year. And if there's anyone in the room that has not been there for that, it's inspiring to go to that. When some of these students are just recognized for going above and beyond, with behaviors and things that they're doing. And I know you were a huge part of that at the high school. I know Mr. Benedict has been a big part of that. And it's just a great deal. I'm excited to see us digging back into that, the junior high. I think that'll definitely help with some behavior type things.
It's an uphill battle, but we'll continue to fight it. We'll get there.
And if we're gonna do breakfast, let me know.
Me too. I can't take that from the high school. That's a really good. So we'll let them, eventually get there and have to do something to do that. You're correct. It's a wonderful event. So if you've never attended, I would highly recommend attending one of, the fall or the spring event. So,
Pizza party might work with junior high. Throwing it out there.
they like pizza. That is for sure.
Yeah. So the board members.
Okay. Goal 2 and goal 3 are, one is ELA and one is math. One and the same. So we've been taking the park test for many years, and really want to, with the teams, the team model at the junior high, really dig into that data. And park provides us with some very, very good data and very good reports. Really dig in and see what standards aren't we meeting, or are we not, we're meeting them, but we're not, we can always do better. So looking at those, that data and those reports to say, what are some gaps in our ELA curriculum, our math curriculum? And park even breaks it down by common state standard, or common core state standard. So we can say, maybe we need to teach a little more of this, or maybe we need to look at this. And which ones are we doing? We're knocking out of the park. Do we need to spend a little less time to even everything out? So our hope is a team will sit down and look at the data, and then the team members in each grade level will be a part of those conversations, and identify the weaknesses, and then also come up with solutions on how we're going to improve and what we're going to improve on. So excited to dig into that. We're actually, Wednesday's our first meeting with the 8th grade. So we're jumping right in. Park scores went home recently. 6th grade, they went home. We'll go home tomorrow from last year's results. And I'm excited to jump into that and work with the team members to analyze that data and figure out how we can make small gains to, in the long run, help Mr. Cheek with his goals. So, any questions in regards to the park data that we're hoping to improve on? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you all tonight and share with you our plans at Lincoln Trail. And I'm going to start out with our academic goals, Nathan Regan math, and you've had a chance to look at the plan. And just kind of a little background that most of that information comes from the map testing that we do 3 times a year. I've got a couple newer people on the board. Most of you heard about math, but it's a test that our kids take fall, winter, and spring in both Regan math that really gives us the best information we can have for help our teachers plan for instruction. I believe this is the 9th year in the district that we've been doing maps, so kids in the high school have map scores from like 2nd grade. It's some really good information that tells you a lot about their students' strengths and maybe some areas that they need to improve upon. So we use that information extensively to make plans, and the goals are really based off that. Teachers can access this information, helps them know their students better. We can break down their data individually by classroom teacher, by grade level, and you can also make predictions from the scores that they get in the fall, where they might end up or where they should end up. Kids can set goals. What we spend the first couple of weeks do a lot of assessing once we get their scores, and helps us plan out our intervention groups and the kids that need extra support and extra time. And the students that score between the 11th and 20th percentile are identified as Tier 2 students. And those are kids that, then the ones that are below the 10th are Tier 3 students. So those are your lower performing students that need a lot of help in both reading and math. I just wanted to give you some numbers so you have an idea of how many students, where we're at as we start the school year. We have 717 students, 3rd through 5th grade. And overall in reading, we have, at the Tier 2 level, we have 62 kids out of 717 that need that Tier 2 support. The ones that need more help in the Tier 3 kids, 19. So that's out of 717. Obviously the goal is that those numbers will decrease by the end of the year, that some of those Tier 2 kids won't need that support. Some of the 3 kids will move up to 2, or maybe even out of 2. In math, 47 kids in Tier 2, and then 15 in Tier 3 require that. So on top of their daily instruction that they get from their classroom teacher, we have 3 interventionists that they work with those kids in small groups, pull them on top of the extra time that they get in the classroom, and then they also sometimes push in with their classroom teachers to help them and give them that extra attention that they need. The one thing that we want to do a better job at and really working towards is also our students that perform really well, to make sure that we're helping them grow as well. And we're trying to do a better job of that, because for years it's kind of, they're doing great, they're okay, but we got to pay attention to those kids too, because we've got to take them where they can go. And sometimes they can go a lot further than we can, provide. I mean, an example, there are kids in 8th grade I know that are going to high school for honors geometry. So we have students with those kind of abilities, and we have to make sure that we're giving them the opportunities that they all need as well. I don't want to get into, you can see the goals on there, and I don't want to get into all those percentages, but so that's how we use the map data. And
Jeff, one question. You talked about kids, moving up from like 3 to 2, 2 to 1. In the past, do you have off the top of your head, what kind of movement we've been able to see through those? I know.
Probably, you'll see more tubes go out. And again, it brings up a good point. We monitor that every month. So they get, those kids are assessed to see where they're at. And we have charts, and, we share with parents and can show. And some kids kind of pop in and out. They might get out for a while, and then there might be a topic that they're covering, some content in math or reading that's a little more challenging, then they might slip back down. But they're always on our radar. And then we also have kids that don't fall into the tier 2 and tier 3 that are really close, that, they're flagged, and their teacher and these intervention people are watching them very closely, so.
Kind of to go with what Nathan said, and you said, I had a couple parents call me, and I always redirect them to the principal. I don't know whether they did, but they're like, my kid didn't get into high math. I don't have anything to do with that with school board. But I have had kids in school, and so to me, those two kind of go together. You're kind of married to the junior high. How do we prep these kids that may not meet that criteria, Jeff, at Lincoln Trail, to get them ready for Nathan? His goals kind of go with that, so.
Well, that's something we're looking at as a district. We had our first math K through 12 meeting last week, and that's on our top, that's one of our agenda items for the year, is kind of look at those things and how, because it starts with kindergarten and all the way through, everything kind of has an impact on each grade level, so we're going to look closely at that.
Because
yeah,
so many people think it's just one snapshot, but you don't track them, so.
Yeah, it's a hot topic. So those are our academic goals, and then our social emotional. Something I'm really excited about is responsive classroom, and we did a district-wide training our first day in August for all the staff on this responsive classroom, which is an evidence-based approach on teaching and learning that focuses on the link between academic and social emotional skills. So it's teachers understanding that emotional skills are just as important as academic skills. So it's laying the foundation for positive behavior and goals, create and maintain positive learning community, teaching routines to the students, having them come up with the rules and investing in the rules. And a part of that is something that's called a morning meeting. So our staff was introduced to it, and it was very well received. So it's something that Nicole has scheduled a major training first week in June. How many spots did you get them? We're close to filling up.
Yeah, we have 30 spots, so most of the time the closest training is in Chicago, so we would have to pay to send a teacher to Chicago for 4 days. So it's much more cost effective for us to bring a trainer here for 4 days, and each trainer we can have up to 30 seats for, but that's a big time commitment for teachers to give up 4 days back to back in the summer for that. But they have until Friday to sign up, and then after Friday, we want to make sure we get all the spots filled so we don't have empty seats. So come next week, whatever seats we have remaining, we'll open those to neighboring districts. But I don't anticipate there being a whole lot of extra seats.
So one of the components of this approach is called a morning meeting, or a meeting where the kids gather. Typically it takes place first thing in the morning, and they come up in a circle, and they greet each other, and they may have a special handshake or a message for the day, and the teacher gives them kind of a prompt, something to respond to. They don't have to come if they don't want to, because some aren't really comfortable. But and I would tell you that most of our teachers took this from that training and all started kind of implementing it. Megan and I get to go visit, and it's a lot of fun to go in and watch kids and see kids that wouldn't dare say a word start to edge their way into the circle and share things like, my grandma was just diagnosed with cancer and it's bothering me, and it teaches the other students they know that this student is going through something troubling, and they can wrap their arms around that person, provide that support. I was in one a couple weeks ago, and the prompt was very timely. If you could change one thing about this school, what would it be? Oh, the principal's here. Let's let him let him hear all this. Most of it was about more recess, different food in the lunchroom.
Yeah.
But again, you're drawing kids in that normally wouldn't say a word, opening up to share, and it really does develop a sense of community, and maybe that we got a new dog, or they asked me what I would do, and because they were all on the recess thing, and I said, well, I tell you what, I wish that we had a place where when the weather's rough and cold, that when we go outside at lunch recess, that if those that didn't want to go outside, I had a place for you inside that you could play, and the kids that like to go outside, I wish we had that. I'm sorry that we don't. And so those kind of give and take, it's a lot of fun. Teachers sometimes will post a little message for the kids to ponder as they walk in the classroom. They'll have it posted, and if they're walking in the door and reading that, and they'll refer to it later in their activity. Really wish I was a student these days instead of when I was in the early, because it takes me back to first grade. If you'll let me share one quick story about my first grade teacher, Mrs. Joanne Hammersley. And I went to a really small school, and there was only one section at each grade level. So it was K through 3, one classroom. Ours was upstairs, first, second, third grade. Mrs. Hammersley, she was probably late 20s, early 30s, and her husband was at the U of I, and he was a PhD student, and she was from New York. And growing up in the middle of a cornfield, I had never met anybody from New York, so she had this accent that scared me to death. I mean, she was really loud, and first thing you do is walk in the room, and those old desks with the lids that's how long ago this was. And it was, get out your books, do this, who wants hot lunch, chocolate or white milk, and everything about her just, and I had so much I wanted to say, but I just couldn't say it. So one day we were going out for recess, and the teachers, this would never happen today, and the bathroom we're all walking out, she goes, Jeff, come with me. Takes me into the teacher's bathroom and picks me up in front of the mirror and holds me and says, are you afraid of me? And I said, yes. You have no reason to be afraid of me, and it all worked out. She taught me how to read. So, but those are the things, that's almost 50 years ago. And I would have loved to walk into a classroom where my teachers brought us together in a little circle and just kind of, what do you want to share today, or let's do this, because I didn't know anything about the kids seated next to me unless I tried to dig it out on my own, so. Just thanks for listening to my story.
Mrs. Hammersley, you better find her and tell her that.
Yeah.
She made a difference in your life.
She did. And my mom couldn't call the principal and say, I don't like Mrs. Hammersley, can you give us another teacher, because she's only first grade teacher. I had her for the whole year. Sometimes.
Any questions for Jeff?
All right, that was your last school improvement plan. Wow.
Before you step
Nice
away,
job.
I just want to commend Lincoln Trail, okay? You talked about the tiered intervention thing. We've been doing it at Lincoln Trail for a long time. And when we talk about the results we get as a district, you know, a few years ago at the high school, we always compared ourselves with what, Morton and Dunlap and Chatham, and that was our list. The list we're comparing ourselves with tonight was a different list. Okay? And we didn't get where we've got, and we're not going where we're going. We got a great staff at the high school, no doubt. We've done some good things at the junior high with double blocking some things, no doubt. But a long time ago, we started tiered intervention at Lincoln Trail. And the staff over there in that group took it very seriously. They've worked hard at it, they perfected it, and it's made a huge difference for us as a district. It's you know, when we get them into the next building and they're already running ahead of where they need to be, or they're already at grade level, or they're already in good shape, and we don't have to do as much backtracking, it makes a huge, huge difference. And that's happened at Lincoln Trail. It's been happening for a lot of years. It's made a huge difference in this district. So thank you. Thank you, staff.
Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Starwell.
Gee, you think you know somebody. I didn't know the story about first grade.
I want to hear about your first grade experience.
Like,
I finally feel I could get it out.
mine's
But evidently, because you're shaking against the wall.
in front of the mirror. Are you afraid of me? Okay, so probably a year ago, really kind of when Nicole came on board, we really started to gel as a pre-K through 5 in the way we do school improvement, and really have kind of forged together to make some of these changes in teaching and learning. So, of course I tried to, like, Jeff, what are you talking? I didn't want to repeat Jeff, he was very vague with me, but now I am not going to repeat what he said, even though we're very much, our buildings have been on the same path. So our literacy goal, involves percentages to see all students grow, not just some students, but trying to get that percentage really high, the number of students that show growth from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And one thing we did last year was we started professional development around guided reading. And we were in like the baby stages of that, and we went very slow so that we can move quickly into this year. Teachers had very intense training every early out throughout the year, and also during full professional development days. And they were also asked to start to work within that model where they felt comfortable, because we have people at all different levels, and so we wanted to kind of meet them where they were. And this year we're in full implementation. That doesn't mean we've stopped our professional development. We are happily in a place now where we are actually going to do what we asked them to do for students, and we're going to differentiate our professional development starting in our early out in November for about 4 months to finish out our guided reading work with teachers. So some teachers are ready to move much faster in other directions. Some teachers we're slowing down for so that they can dig deeper into that work. And then it is the responsibility of, Ryan, myself, Megan, and Jeff to really make sure that that's all implemented with fidelity as we move in and out of classrooms and try to support teachers to move that work forward, so that in the end run, when I sit down with the data in June, I see that we have more students meeting their growth than we've ever had in Mahomet at our grade levels. With math, we also have same kind of goals based on student growth, but quite frankly, to dig into math over last year or this year would frankly have been irresponsible, because then you're asking teachers, you're watering things down, and you're asking them to be all over the place. So although we have a great math curriculum, and I feel like teachers implement that very well, they are starting to ask now, what else can we do with math? Where can we differentiate? Meaning, how can we meet kids at different levels in math like we are in reading? I want to do what I'm doing in literacy, now I'm ready to move it into math.
So fortunately, this is our first year in a master schedule, and built into that master schedule, K through 5, are built-in collaboration times for us to meet with teachers during the academic day while their students are at specials in library. And it is during those periods of time that we can do regularly, every other week, professional development, and a lot of us teachers are asking to dig a little bit into math for us. So we're gonna start to chip away at that while we still try to finish up our work around guided reading. It's, in my opinion, when you build the capacity of the adults that are working with children, that's how you grow the children. And so my time and energy is spent on what are we gonna do with them, what resources do they need, what support do they need. All those things are centered around that. And then, Nicole and Lindsay and Christine support us in those efforts. So those are the academic areas kind of in a nutshell. The social emotional is our third goal. And again, to piggyback off of that whole responsive classroom approach, because there is a very strong link between what kids learn academically is very dependent on their social emotional state when they are here at school. And so those two things mean a lot, and it's not as much as what they're learning, but how are they learning. So that approach we are launching throughout the building, and again, we're kind of meeting teachers where they're at. Some of them are ready to go, and we're working with them in individual pockets to kind of get things going. The last 3 months of school, we'll do a book study here on teacher language. And that's how you talk to children, how you engage children with your language, not just the tone you use, but the directness of your language, when it's important to talk and when it's important not to talk. And really in engaged classrooms, the teacher's not talking a lot. The kids are doing most of the talking. And so really digging into that, we are going to do a book study the last 3 months. The other component that we've implemented is called interactive modeling as part of responsive classroom. So the old way of teaching procedures and routines even would be like a boot camp model of the first couple days of school. Many kids, would come home, we learned rules and how to go to the bathroom and how to wash our hands. And really with responsive classroom, it's embedded throughout the day. Nothing is assumed and everything is taught, but it's taught in a way that students model it, and then they're interactively noticing what is happening with each other, and then they are practicing it. And that happens continuously every day through everything they do. So it could be as simple as washing your hands when you go to the bathroom, but it also could be as complicated as interactive modeling, how to give one of your peers feedback on something they had written. So it can go from the academic to the very mundane, what is procedural kinds of things. And then the other area is called logical consequences. So when we work with behavior here, which kids misbehave, kids make mistakes, and it's not always and most of the time not meant to be punitive in our response to that. And so the Latin root for disciplina means learning. So really, discipline is something that needs to be explicitly taught on how to fix something. So Mr. Ryan and I spend a lot of time talking with kids about what something might look like and how they might fix it. The golden rule is if you break it, you fix it. So if you decided to tear up a piece of paper, here's a roll of tape and go ahead and tape that back together and then get to work. I mean, it literally is that simple. If a student harms another student, it's their job to repair it. But when you're little, you don't know how to repair that. So usually I would be the student harmed and I let the student practice on me and I kind of coach them through. This is what it should sound like. This is what it should feel like. This is how you would look in the eyes of the other child. They practice on me. We get the person that they've harmed together and then they kind of repair that relationship. That practice in itself goes a long way. You know, in the old days, people would, oh, you better write in a letter of apology. You want to make a difference, you got to face that person and you got to make it right. And it usually doesn't happen again because it's super easy to write a letter, just like it's super easy to, you know, send an email, but it's really hard. And our kids do a phenomenal job at it, and quite frankly, around here, they all, most of the time end up hugging. At the end, which is super cute. Because then at the end, I usually say, well, do you forgive them? And they're like, yes, and then they hug, and it's super sweet. So, that's really kind of the mindset around what behavior looks like. You know, it is really trying to build up that intrinsic need to feel good and do right, and so we are working in both of our buildings on making that happen. Questions or comments?
You all have a lot of transition going on in your building. I mean, I asked you about your buy-in, you know, 80%. How do you feel like it's going merging here with 2 buildings into one? And I mean, you're on the, what is it? How many days have we been in
6
school?
weeks.
Well, yeah, so the easy part is done, the physical merge is over. I mean, I say the easy part, it didn't seem so easy about August. But that part is done, and yeah, the more challenging part is blending the cultures. And so Mr. Martin and I, we have a building leadership team that meets once a month, and that is the charge of our work this year, is really trying to establish what is our culture like, what do we believe in, and that's what we've been tackling the last 2 months, is what do we believe about every child that walks through our door, like every child. And that is something that's new for people to grapple about. It's easy to say, you know, in general what we want it to be, but what about the really tricky kid? You know, what about the kid that is like over the charts high, and yet, you know, we don't want them just sitting getting the middle of the road curriculum. How are we going to meet all those kids' needs, and what do we believe? And so that we kind of launched off of our work at our administrative retreat, which is that ideally we want every child to come to school every day. So if you think about that, you know, like most days my kids wanted to go to school, but like every single day, when life's hard, when you haven't had a meal, how do you get a kid to still want to come here and be a part of it? Or, you know, you're not very good at math, how do you get the kid to want to come even though math isn't their thing, and engage in math? So that's what we're tackling with, and we feel like we're having great movement. And a teacher had a great, she's like, what are you trying to get at here? Are you trying to write a mission statement? And I'm not like a mission statement person because they usually get buried or they put on the letterhead and all that. But I really believe like if you're going to do work like that, that's a working document. The school improvement plan for me, that's a working document. I'll check in on it in December, I'll check in on it in June, but it drives all the work that Mr. Martin and I do. And so that's what I believe about the work of the leadership team, and hopefully we land in a good place.
When it comes to the whole blending of the staff thing and all of that, I know you guys have worked hard on that to this point. And if you've got ideas or thoughts or things you want to do, or there's support you need from us, I mean, I don't expect an answer right now tonight. But if you think of something that you need our support for to help continue to help that to happen and evolve, just say something to Dr. Hall and let us know, because we are on board with helping that to happen.
We appreciate that.
Especially if it's a pizza party.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's slime party, they're gonna be fun.
For pizza parties tonight, I'm not sure why.
Slime party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bring two colors.
Yeah, we took one for the
Yeah.
team, and it's fine.
Yeah.
Kids are so excited.
They're still talking about it.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, that was big, yeah. Thank you. Anything else before
I just want to conclude by saying, I couldn't be more excited about what I see happening in all of our buildings. And it's just inspiring, and it's an honor to work with. And this isn't the whole group, but the administrative team, I think it's in a great place. I'm so appreciative for all of you and your hard work. And I feel like there's so many cool things that are happening here, and the future is so bright. Got just so many great opportunities, and in particular that might be more evident at our high school, just because the high school is a capstone experience. Things tend to be more public and more out there, but I've had the opportunity the last couple of weeks to get in a lot of classrooms. It's been my goal to get in the classroom with all of our new teachers, and I'm almost through with that list. There's a lot of them, by the way, and just there are just incredible things going on. So our staff is doing an amazing job and being led by really exceptional leaders in our buildings. So happy Principals Month also.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You could that's a pizza party right there.
At this time, a closed session is necessary for number one, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of a specific employee of the public body, including hearing testimony on complaint lodged against an employee to determine its validity. Is there a motion to go into closed session for that reason?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. You all sound so excited about this. Need a roll call vote, please.
Parker. Yes. Castle.
Yes.
Rayford.
Yes.
Giles.
Yes.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
McComb.
Yes, we'll take a 5-minute recess to clear the room. Thank you all for being here tonight.
Yes.
Thank you.